Okay, welcome everyone. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. So if you can hear me, if you can please raise a hand, that would be great. Then that will let me know. Awesome. Thank you. And because of an accidental closure of the webinar, I just want to make sure we're trying to get in contact with one person who was on. So I'm going to just give a couple of minutes before we get started to make sure that we have everyone on that wanted to participate. So we'll get started at about 1:04. Sorry, we're just waiting another minute or so just to make sure that everyone's on that wants to participate because of a technical glitch. Then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. It looks like we did the check to make sure everyone can hear us, so we will proceed. Today is May 15th, 2020, and the time is 1:05 p.m. Welcome and thank you for attending the State Board of Veterinary Medicine stakeholder meeting via webinar. Before we get started, we want to introduce ourselves to you, the staff members from the division who are present on the webinar. My name is Darcy Magnuson. I'm a regulatory analyst with the division. Also attending is Karen Phelan, who is the program director of the board. Christina Jones is a program specialist for the board, and Elena Kemp is a regulatory coordinator. We will be facilitating this stakeholder meeting. In compliance with governor's orders regarding COVID-19, the division has transitioned to a platform that is 100% virtual, and we appreciate your flexibility. As many of you have been to DORA stakeholder meetings before, we would like to reiterate the importance of your comments today. DORA makes decisions every day that may affect your life and your business. Your input is vital in the rulemaking process. Throughout this process, our goal is to create regulations that clarify and explain legislation, ensure minimum competency to enter and continue to practice, and provide only what is absolutely necessary for consumer protection without creating unnecessary barriers to the marketplace. Your input will be part of the information that goes to the board as it considers adopting or amending the rules that we will be discussing today. More specifically, we will be discussing proposed changes to all of the State Board of Veterinary Medicine's rules in compliance with Section 24.4.103.3 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, which mandates a regularly scheduled review of the rules to assess the continuing need, appropriateness, and cost effectiveness of its rules to determine if they should be continued in their current form, modified, or repealed. The statutorily guided principles for review are to ensure the rules are necessary, do not overlap or duplicate other rules of the agency, federal, state, or local government rules, are written in plain language and easy to understand, achieve the desired intent, and determine if more or less regulation is necessary, are amended to provide more flexibility, reduce regulatory burdens, and reduce unnecessary paperwork or steps, if at all possible, while maintaining their benefits, are implemented in an efficient and effective manner, including the requirements for the issuance of permits and licenses, have a timely cost-benefit analysis produced if requested pursuant to Section 24.4.103, subsection 2.5, and are adequate for the protection of the safety, health, and welfare of the state or its residents. This meeting today is being recorded and will be posted on the website at a later date. As this stakeholder meeting is held solely by webinar, please raise your hand using the hand icon if you would like to speak, and we will unmute your line so you can be heard by everyone. Or you can type in your comment in the question section and we will read it aloud. Before we start taking comments, we ask that anyone providing comments please state your name and who you represent. Feel free to provide either general comments on the rule changes or specific comments on the proposed language, and keep your comments limited to 3 to 5 minutes or less. We ask that you try not to repeat something that was already said by someone else, but we do appreciate if you state whether you're in agreement with something that someone else said. If you're using the audio through your computer, please put any phones on vibrate or turn them off. And whether you are using computer or phone audio, try to keep background noises to a minimum when speaking. So with that, we will go ahead and take comments now from stakeholders who are participating. You can either raise your hand and we'll unmute you, like I said, or you can type in questions or chats and we can read them out loud for the recording. All right, Diane, I see you have your hand up. So Diane, let me see here. You are unmuted and you should be able to speak.
Great, thanks. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Great. For the record, my name is Diane Matt, and I am the CEO of the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association. I submitted some written comments a little bit earlier today, and I realized that you may or may not have had those work their way through the system just yet. But I will say that, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to share CVMA's comments and suggestions going forward. We have reviewed the most current draft that came out with the stakeholder announcement, and we have two kinds of comments that we'd like to offer today. The first comment is substantive, and I'll spend some time on that. And the second set of comments are more editorial in nature. So I have sent a marked up copy of the rule in track changes mode so that you can easily find the editorial comments. I will say to begin that I think overall these changes are moving in a positive direction. Each time I look at these, they get more comprehensible and better. So I think that's a pat on the back to the team that's been working on this. As I read them this time, I noticed that because they've gotten clearer, now it's easy to sort of perceive that the internal structure of the rules is not really making a strong contribution to the overall understandability and usability of the rules. Partly because everything is numbered in sequence, you kind of get the feeling that the way these rules came to be was every time something needed to be addressed, it was sort of added on near the end. So what I have done here is to suggest a different kind of organizational structure that would group like topics together, and a different numbering system. In my comments, I actually sent a model that might be useful, that groups certain kinds of things together. I know that you can't see that right now, probably, but it may be useful as you take the next steps. I do think, to sort of drill a little deeper in that, I think the section on licensing in particular has gotten quite a lot better, and I can see it sort of is asking me for another set of improvements, which would be, I think it needs sort of an introductory section or some general provisions or general requirements that pulls together the standardized segments of the licensing process that really apply to all or nearly all of the licensees. And that would be things like submission of complete paperwork and supporting materials, timelines for application, payment of fees, reporting of disciplinary and pending disciplinary actions, things of that nature. I also think it would be helpful to group the continuing education and substance use prevention training under another subheading, and I think you'll see that in the table that I sent along. The only other substantive comment that I will make regards the fining schedule, which I happen to trace into the statute. And to me, and I'm not an attorney, it looks like the statute requires that the rules include a fining schedule. So I just mentioned that as a detail to chase down to make sure that the rules do meet the needs of the statutes. So those are my primary comments at this point. There are a number of, as I say, editorial things that I don't think bear going through right now, but I would, of course, be happy to answer any questions about those when the time comes. So with that, I don't think I have more comments at this point, but if you would like to ask me any questions about what I've said so far, I'd be happy to respond.
I think that's helpful, Diane, and I always appreciate how thorough you are in your comments. That is a good point to look at about the statute and the finding schedule. So we will definitely take a look at that and make sure that the board has an opportunity to consult with counsel, because we absolutely want to be in compliance with the statute. I don't have any questions. I don't know if Karen does or any other staff members do at this point.
When you get to looking at what I submitted in writing, I would be happy to answer any questions there. I just think some different kinds of organization internally in the rules could contribute a lot to veterinarians' understanding of the sweep of what they are supposed to have a grasp of. When they're sort of chopped into successive pieces, I think it creates, well, I'll say it doesn't contribute to clarity.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Is there anyone else participating via webinar that wants to provide any input or comments on the draft changes of the rules? Okay, so I don't want to cut anyone off. So we'll just wait a few more minutes, at least until 1:20. If anyone has any thoughts or comments, you can either raise your hand or you can type them into the question feature and we can read those out loud to the group. So if you hear silence, that's why. Diane, I unmuted you again. I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. My question for you now is, my understanding is that this set of rules will go before the state board at its June meeting. And I am wondering if there will be a set of changes or edits or modifications made between now and the time that that goes before the state board. And if so, how I could get a copy of those.
Good question. So what we will do is incorporate stakeholder feedback. The rules will be filed with the draft rules will be filed with the Secretary of State. And then prior to the rulemaking hearing, which is scheduled for the next meeting, we will send out the updated version of the rules to stakeholders for review and additional comments. So at that point in time, you'll be able to provide more written comments. And then at the hearing, you'll also be given an opportunity to testify before the board. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, let me make sure I understand. It sounds like there will be an update of the rules that are based on these comments, and then the next update will be sent out to stakeholders between now and the 18th of June?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And you can see, I know Elena's scrolling through, but similar to how we inserted your comments from before, we'll make a note of, for example, your comment once we look at the written comments that you submitted in the rules for about the policy and, sorry, the finding schedule and whether that should be in rule or policy. We'll make a note of that in there for all stakeholders and for the board to see as well. So that's what it will look like. And then I haven't looked at your non-substantive, sounds like more technical changes, but we can always add those in and then add a note that it came from you with the association.
Okay, that sounds great. Sometimes I don't seem to always get the updated things before the next meeting. So I'm wondering if there's a place I need to be looking to be able to access those.
As long as you're on our list, which Elena can check after the meeting, our stakeholder list, you should be receiving them. So we send them out a number of ways. We send them out via blast email to stakeholders and licensees. We also post them on the board's calendar, and then we also post them on the board's website. So there are multiple areas where you can check, but you should be receiving them as a stakeholder via email.
Okay, I'll certainly take a look at the website. Do you have a sense of when those might arrive there?
We generally try to post 3 weeks before the hearing. So that's a good time frame, between 2 to 3 weeks before the hearing. They should be posted there.
Okay, that's like tomorrow.
Isn't it?
Yes, I'm joking.
Okay, I was like, wait a second. That seems really soon. Okay. Alrighty. Good
Okay,
question.
good. Thank you. And if Elena could verify that I am on the right list, that would be helpful to me.
We will do that.
Great. Thanks so much. That's everything I have to add right now.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any other hands raised or other written comments. Give a couple more minutes and then we will go ahead and proceed with a reminder that you can always submit written comments like we've talked about, and that this recording will be posted on the board's website in case you think of anything else, or in case you want to listen to the comments that were made and make additional comments. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more hands raised and no written comments, so we'll go ahead and proceed. We want to thank you again for participating in today's meeting. The stakeholder comments and program recommendations will be presented to the board before the permanent rulemaking hearing on June 18th, 2020. At the formal rulemaking hearing, stakeholders will have another opportunity to testify and provide additional input as needed. If you want to provide written comments, please send them to the general mailbox at dora_dpo_rulemaking@state.co.us. We will accept written comments up to the date of the hearing. However, to provide the board adequate time for review and consideration, we ask that you submit your written comments no later than Thursday, June 4th, 2020. That concludes our stakeholder meeting. We thank you again for participating, and as I mentioned, it will be posted on the website. With that, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar at this time.